Do you relate more to a Walkman, iPod, or Spotify? Was your phone attached to a wall and your computer tethered to a desk? Or are smart TVs and smartphones all you've ever known? In either case, technology has come a long way since the 80s and 90s. As we've gone from hi-fi to Wi-Fi, let's take a look at the gadgets that were left behind and their modern replacements. Cassette tapes, MP3s, and music streaming. If you wanted to take your music on the go in the 1950s or 60s, the only real option was a transistor AM/FM radio, and you could only listen to whatever was being broadcast on the station. The 1963 introduction of the cassette tape revolutionized that pretty quickly, and by the 80s and 90s, it had become a very common way to listen to music. Now, for those of the smartphone generation, instead of an entire library playing from the plastic phone in your hand, these tiny plastic rectangles contained 2 spools of magnetic tape that carried your favorite tunes to your ears. And the most convenient way to play these cassettes was on a Walkman. Introduced by Sony in 1979, just in time to take over the 80s, the Walkman was the pioneer of headset culture before Beats by Dre and wireless earbuds were ever even a thought. For those who wanted to rock the portable party, boomboxes provided a larger stereo sound that wasn't just limited to earpieces. Pause, record, play technology allowed customers to create and share their own mixtapes. Yes, that's where the name you hear on SoundCloud comes from, as the predecessor to today's playlists. Cassette tapes eventually gave way to another 80s baby, 1982's compact disc, that became better known as the CD, which would wind up as the last survivor of the physical music media age. With the Discman overtaking the Walkman, in 1991, CDs overtook cassette tapes as America's best-selling music format, making up more than 90% of the US market share by the year 2000. But even before the calendar turned to all those zeros, digitized personal media players started to hit the scene in South Korea in 1997. MP3 players were about to take over and lead us into the modern age. The first iPod debuted in 2001 with a then massive 5GB hard drive that eliminated the need for physical tapes or CDs, now having the ability to store music directly onto the device. Today, every smartphone has such a feature, and streaming services like Apple Music and Spotify take care of organization for us. With CDs and tapes long obsolete, even the iPod itself was dethroned by a phone and officially became discontinued in 2022. VCRs, Atari, and smart TVs. Before the world said see ya to the CD, the technology for media on discs was first pioneered with the Laserdisc in the 1980s, which played both video and audio. However, the medium wasn't widely adopted, despite the higher picture quality compared to the 80s and 90s true hero of home entertainment, the VHS tape. Operating on a similar dual-spool tape system as their similar audio cassette counterparts, VCRs, or video cassette recorders, were used to play VHS video home system tapes and brought movies and TVs into living rooms across the globe. Much like a mixtape, pause, record, and play options allowed home recording of live broadcast TV or copying of other tapes, which sent VHS sales skyrocketing. But you needed to plug that VCR into something to watch what was on the tape. Enter the classic CRT TV. The precursor to today's HD TV flat-screen wonders, CRT TVs used vacuum tubes and electron guns to project what we now know as a standard definition picture onto a glass screen. Bulky, expensive, and generally cumbersome, you could only get a black and white TV until the 1960s, and it wasn't until the late 70s and 80s that color eventually became an industry-wide standard. And in the days long before phone-based games like Candy Crush, video games were confined to these standard def TVs and included substandard graphics to match on systems like Atari 2600 and the line of evolving Nintendo systems, as well as Sony's first PlayStation console. For TV and movie buffs, disc technology eventually did catch on with DVDs and Blu-ray discs of more modern times, along with the introduction of HD TV, 4K, and 8K viewing. This went hand in hand with higher definition TVs becoming flatter, wider, clearer, and most importantly for our chiropractic bills, lighter. Around the house, shelves got lighter too, no longer burdened with massive collections of VHS tapes or DVD cases. Streaming service and video on-demand tech from the likes of Netflix, Amazon Prime, YouTube, Roku, Google Play, and iTunes have removed the physical inconvenience of having to leave the house to rent something. That's right, no more Friday night visits to Blockbuster. Streaming eliminated the need to physically buy or rent a copy of the shows and movies that you liked. Gamers have upped their game too, with PlayStation now on its 5th iteration alongside the modernized Xbox Series X and handheld convenience of the Nintendo Switch that combines a classic home console with handheld portability. First time here? Well, if you're curious about the way things were compared to the way things are, then hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new video. Now, back to more gadgets. Landlines, pagers, and smartphones. Today, the word phone is a catch-all term for a one-stop shop gadget that does everything from banking to gaming to scheduling our daily lives. Of course, that evolved from the device's original purpose as a telephone, and the classic version of that device was dedicated strictly to one thing: communication. And no, texts and emails were not part of the equation just yet. Old-fashioned audio conversation over a distance any further than you could shout was handled by landline telephones, on a system that long before 5G or Wi-Fi required interconnected collections of physical wires to carry audio signals. And unlike today's mobile phones, these telephones were stuck in one place, either hanging in the kitchen or plugged into a wall outlet in a room. But there was another gadget to solve that problem, keeping on-the-go business people and emergency responders of the 80s and 90s in the loop, was something called a pager. This portable device was often referred to as a beeper since it would generate what might be best described as an old-school push notification. A corresponding contact name or phone number would flash on the device, alerting the user that they'd then have to find a phone of their own to call that person back. And after all that, just in case no one answered on the other end, another classic gadget of the day came into play, the aptly named answering machine. Using cassette tapes, these devices were attached to telephones which were attached to walls that then connected to phone lines, and the recorded incoming voice messages to be played back when the owner got home. Thankfully, all those requirements of a fleet of separate gadgets being connected to separate sets of interwoven communication lines like a box of tangled up Christmas lights have become a thing of the past. Voicemail is now integrated directly into our mobile networks, eliminating the need for answering machines. Two-way instant messaging on iMessage, WhatsApp, and Meta Messenger platforms have pushed the pager into becoming a technology side note. And both audio and visual communication are available on our smartphones through Skype, Zoom, and FaceTime. In the end, it means that today we don't need nearly as many gadgets and gizmos just to keep in touch with each other. Fax machines, modem noise, and the cloud. The glow-up of all these gadgets has also had a big impact on the world of business and communication. The big hair, power ties, and shoulder pads that were commonplace in office buildings of the 80s and 90s were surrounded by tech that was just as much a product of its era as the fabulous fashions were. In the days before texting and email, the fastest way to send words and images was the fax machine. Short for facsimile, a fax lived up to its name by scanning an image and sending that copy through the same telephone poles and wires that regular calls went through to be printed out automatically on the other end. And all those documents being faxed were most likely being produced using an electric typewriter. Typewriters introduced us to the still-in-use QWERTY keyboard style that is found on laptops, messaging apps, and smart TV browsers even now. They used a system of literally pressing ink onto paper as letters were typed. But by the end of the 1980s, the electric typewriter had given way to desktop computers that transitioned to word processing software. To get those words from screen to page required another gadget though, and the dot matrix printer was just the ticket. It used collections of small ink dots to form whole letters and words on paper. For large files containing too many pages to practically print and carry from place to place, CD-ROM technology and its floppy disk predecessor introduced electronic storage. By the 1990s, the early internet had crept into the equation to send information electronically, but it was slow and lacked widespread usage. You also had to sit through the nightmare-fueling dial-up connection noise from the modem before you could send anything. Yep, that's the one. Today, you can use Wi-Fi to connect to the internet in blissful silence without any screeching sound blaring into your ears. USB drives and the cloud have replaced those stacks of disks that would have overrun any 1990s office space. Instant email has eclipsed sending a fax, and the shift to PCs and laptops in the home instead of strictly the office has helped to facilitate all of it. In those rare instances where you still need something on a physical piece of paper, laser and inkjet printers replaced the dot matrix system as early as 1995. But even 3 decades later, we still have to deal with all those pesky ink cartridges. Photo albums, Polaroid, and cameras and phones. In the 80s and 90s, pictures were captured on spooled rolls of film tucked inside of a camera complete with lenses and shutters. That's where the clicking noise your phone makes when you take a selfie comes from. The roll of film had to then be processed by professionals through a painstaking process involving chemical baths and different levels of light exposure so the images could be enlarged and then printed out onto glossy photo paper. After that, you could display them in a frame on your wall or preserve them in a photo album. To bypass the whole thing, the Polaroid company introduced the instant camera, but it could only take and print a single photo at a time instead of the larger numbers on full rolls of film. Slide projectors were also a convenient way to show off your vacation photos, but cramming the family into a dark living room to listen to Aunt Betty's boring beach stories was widely regarded as a chore. It's the complete opposite in modern times, where we can't wait to see everyone's photos to like and share on platforms like Instagram, Flickr, and Imager. The transition to digital pics started in 1990 with the commercial release of the Logitech Photoman. Its grayscale 8-bit low-res photos, poor battery life, and limited memory storage was a rocky start. But by the 2000s, digital photography was here to stay. With the ability to print photos from the convenience of your home PC and the incorporation of digital cameras into cell phones, photography's complex chemical processes and expensive equipment were no longer needed. Stacks of photo albums filled with family memories have turned into literal thin air, with the ability to store pics on flash drives, hard drives, Google Photos, and iCloud. While today we might look back at the 80s and 90s as an inconvenient time overrun with an endless stream of gadgets, as tech advances into the future, the people of the 2080s and 2090s might look back on our Wi-Fi smartphone age with the same chuckle we got out of this nostalgic trip down memory lane. Looking for more videos like this one? Then stay right here. Just tap or click to keep on watching. Thanks.